Her family sold her on a winter morning. That is the truth no one in Thornvale speaks aloud. They wrapped it in words like alliance and necessity and sacrifice for the pack. But Soraya knows what it was. Payment. Her father handed her over to the most feared pack in the Northern Territories like she was livestock, like she was nothing. The Ironmore pack does not take prisoners. Everyone knows this. They take land, they take blood, they take everything. And at their head stands Alpha Vorian, the scourge of the North. The man who crushed 3 packs in a single winter, whose name mothers whisper to frighten children into obedience. So when Soraya is dragged before him in chains, wrists raw and bleeding, she expects death. Everyone expects death. The gathered wolves watch with hunger in their eyes, waiting for the execution that will seal the alliance in blood. Instead, Alpha Vorian descends from his throne. He crosses the great hall in silence, each step echoing like a war drum. The crowd holds its breath. He stops directly in front of her, close enough that she can see the scars crossing his face, the cold intensity of his gaze, the absolute stillness of a predator who has never known fear. And then he leans down, his breath warm against her ear, and whispers 3 words that change everything. You're mine. Not a threat. Not a claim of ownership. Something else entirely. So now the entire hall is wondering the same thing. Why would the most ruthless alpha in the realm look at a worthless, discarded girl and see something worth keeping? 3 days earlier, Soraya had still believed her father might change his mind. She stood in the great hall of Thornvale Keep, the only home she'd ever known, with her hands clasped tight behind her back to hide their trembling. The fire crackled low in the hearth. Outside, snow fell in thick curtains, muffling the world in white silence. Her father, Aldrich, sat in the Alpha's chair with his new wife beside him. Marisanda, beautiful, cold, calculating. She'd married Aldrich 3 years after Soraya's mother died, and in those 5 years since, she had systematically dismantled everything Soraya once had. Her room, her status, her place at the family table. Now, apparently, her freedom. The terms are final, Aldrich said without looking at her. He was studying a document, his jaw tight. You leave at dawn. Soraya's throat closed. Father. Do not. Marisanda's voice sliced through the air. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. Harder for whom? Soraya wanted to scream, but she had learned years ago that screaming changed nothing. The Ironmore pack demanded payment for the insult during the border skirmish. Aldrich continued, his voice flat. They wanted territory. We cannot afford to lose more land. So you're giving them me instead. The words hung there, ugly and true. Aldrich's hand tightened on the document. Still, he didn't look at her. You are unmated, of age. It is a reasonable exchange. Reasonable. Soraya felt something inside her give way, the last thread of hope she hadn't known she was still holding. He'll kill me, she said quietly. Alpha Vorian executes prisoners. Everyone knows this. Then die with dignity, Marisande said. It's the least you can do for your pack. Soraya looked at her stepmother, at the perfect mask of her face, the glittering satisfaction barely hidden in her dark eyes, and understood with perfect clarity that this had been Marisanda's design all along. She turned to her father one last time. Mother would never have allowed this. Aldrich's face went white. For one moment, one single, suspended moment, she thought he might finally see her. Then Marisanda's hand settled on his arm, and the moment vanished. Your mother, Aldrich said slowly, is dead. They gave her nothing. No supplies, no warm clothing, no weapon. Just the thin dress she wore, and a pair of boots with holes in the soles. The journey took 3 days through frozen forest and snow-choked passes. Soraya's feet went numb on the first day. By the second, She had stopped feeling the cold entirely. By the third, she wondered if she was already dying. She thought about running. The forest was vast, and she knew how to survive. Her mother had taught her how to find shelter, how to track game, how to disappear. But where would she go? No pack would take her. She had no allies, no resources, no name worth claiming. "You were never anything but a burden," Marisanda had said the night before. Your mother's ghost wearing a girl's face. Then the trees opened, and she saw it. The fortress rose from the mountainside like something carved from shadow. Black stone walls, jagged towers, smoke rising from dozens of fires within. The Ironmoor stronghold. The guards pulled her forward. The gates groaned open, and Soraya walked into the mouth of the beast with her chin lifted and her heart hammering. If I'm going to die, she thought, I will not do it on my knees. She did not know, yet, that dying was not what he had planned for her at all. Vorian scented her before he saw her. It came through the throne room doors like a whisper, something beneath the stench of unwashed guards and melting snow, something clean, bright, familiar in a way that made every instinct in his body surge to attention. He kept his face impassive. 5 years of ruling Ironmoor had taught him that expressions were weakness, and weakness was death. The doors swung open. Torvald, his commander, strode in first, battle-scarred and loyal to the bone. Behind him came 2 Thornvale guards, and between them, her. Vorian stopped breathing. She was filthy, thin. Her dress was torn, her wrists raw from iron cuffs, her lips cracked from cold. Dark hair hung in matted tangles around a face that was all sharp cheekbones and hollow shadows. And her eyes, they met his across the length of the great hall with absolutely no fear. She looked at him like she was already dead, and therefore had nothing left to lose. Something inside him howled with recognition. "The payment from Thornvale, my alpha," Torvald announced. As agreed. Vorian forced himself to lean back, to appear bored. "This?" He let contempt drip from his voice. "Aldrich sends me a half-starved girl and calls it payment?" One of the Thornvale guards shifted nervously. "She is his daughter, my alpha, his firstborn," a gesture of his unwanted daughter. Vorian cut through the lie. "A motherless girl he's been trying to dispose of for years. Don't insult my intelligence." The court tittered. They expected him to reject her. Send her back in pieces, perhaps. The girl's chin lifted. Just slightly. Just enough. Defiant little thing. "Approach," he ordered. The guards shoved her forward. She stumbled, caught herself, and kept walking. Not dragged, not carried, walking on her own power. She stopped at the base of the dais. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "Alpha Vorian." Her voice came out rough but clear. "The scourge of the north. You've killed more wolves than the winter plague. And yet you don't kneel. You haven't earned it." The silence that followed was absolute. Every wolf in the hall went rigid. Torvald's hand moved toward his sword. Vorian rose from his throne. He descended the steps slowly, letting his presence fill the space. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough to see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. "Mine." Something primal growled inside him. "Ours." "Your father sold you to die," he said quietly. Only she could hear. "Do you understand that?" "Yes. You should be begging for mercy." "Mercy from the scourge of the north?" A ghost of dark humor crossed her face. "I'd have better luck begging the storm to stop." His mouth twitched. He controlled it viciously. Then he leaned down, close enough that his breath stirred her hair. "You're mine," he whispered. She went rigid. He pulled back, turning to face his court. "The debt is paid," he announced. "The girl belongs to Ironmoor now. She will be treated as a guest, not a prisoner. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally. Shock rippled through the hall. Vorian was already walking back to his throne. He had no idea what he'd just done. He only knew that letting her die had been impossible. And that terrified him more than any army ever had. They gave her a room. Not a cell. Not a cage. A room. With a bed that had actual blankets, a fireplace already crackling with heat, and a window overlooking snow-covered mountains. Soraya stood in the center of it, utterly confused. What game is he playing? A soft knock came at the door. A young woman slipped inside, dark skin, close-cropped hair, warm brown eyes. She carried a tray with bread, cheese, and steaming soup. "I'm Yara," she said. "I'll be attending you while you're here." "Attending me?" Soraya repeated the words like they were foreign. "I'm a prisoner." The Alpha said guest. "The Alpha is—" She stopped. "Why didn't he kill me?" Yara's expression flickered. Something careful, knowing. "I don't pretend to understand his reasons." "But you have a guess." Silence. Then, quietly, "He's never claimed anyone before, not once, in 5 years. People are talking." "What people?" "Everyone." Yara set down the tray. "Including Lady Silvira. She's been positioning herself as the future Luna for years. Your arrival has complicated her plans." Soraya filed the name away. "She sounds dangerous." "She's ambitious." Yara's voice dropped. "In this court, that's the same thing. Be careful around her." Soraya nodded slowly, tucking the warning away for later. The soup was hot. Real. Soraya ate it so fast she nearly burned her tongue, her body remembering 3 days of starvation. When she finished, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the fire. "You're mine." She kept hearing it. The rasp of his voice. The impossible gentleness beneath the words. She was still turning the question over when another knock came. Harder this time. "Enter," she said. The door opened. And there he was. Alpha Vorian filled the doorway like a storm filling a valley. Simpler clothes now, dark wool and leather, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms marked with old scars. "You've eaten," he observed. "Yes." She stood. "Am I supposed to thank you?" "You're supposed to survive." He stepped inside. "Which means eating, sleeping, not dying of cold because your father sent you here in rags." "Did you know, when you made the deal, that he was sending his unwanted daughter to die?" "I suspected." "And you took me anyway?" "Yes." "Why?" He didn't answer immediately. His gaze moved over her face, searching for something she couldn't name. Then quietly, "I don't know." It was such an unexpected admission that Soraya nearly stepped back. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing you don't choose to give." "Then what does your mine mean?" "You're under my protection." His voice dropped. "That means no one in this fortress touches you. No one sends you back to the father who threw you away." Soraya held his gaze, waiting for the catch. The cruelty. It didn't come. "I don't understand you," she said finally. "Good." A flicker of warmth crossed his expression. "That makes 2 of us." He turned toward the door, then paused. "Tomorrow, you'll attend a hearing in the Great Hall. I want you to see how disputes are handled here." "Why?" He glanced back. "Because I want you to understand something, Soraya." It was the first time he'd said her name. It felt like a hand closing around her throat. "Understand what?" "That monsters can choose to be something else." Then he was gone. The great hall looked different in morning light. When Soraya had entered it in chains, she'd seen only shadows and teeth. Now, standing beside a stone pillar with Yara at her side, she saw order, structure, everything arranged with military precision. And at the center, Vorian sat on the throne like he'd been carved from the same black stone. "First dispute," announced Torvald, a matter of territory between the Greymoor refugees and the Ironmoor miners. Soraya straightened. Greymoor, one of the packs Vorian had destroyed. A thin, weathered man stepped forward. Behind him stood others, all wearing the haunted look of people who had lost everything. My Alpha, we were promised settlement land near the Eastern Ridge, but the mining guild has seized it. You were promised nothing, a larger man interrupted arrogantly. Your pack lost the war. Be grateful we allow you to breathe. Be grateful. How many times had Marisanda said those exact words? The mining guild's claim, Vorian spoke, and the hall went silent, was filed 3 days after the settlement promise. Convenient. The arrogant man's confidence flickered. The land belongs to the Greymoor settlers, Vorian continued. As was promised, the mining guild will find their minerals elsewhere. Or answer to me. Soraya watched the refugees file out. The thin man glanced back, hope breaking across his weathered face. He could have sided with power. He didn't. The hearings continued for 2 more hours. Not once did Vorian choose cruelty when fairness would serve. When the hall emptied, Yara touched her arm. The Alpha has requested your presence in his study. The study was smaller than expected. Books lined the walls, actually red, their spines cracked and worn. Maps covered a heavy desk, marked with notations in precise handwriting. Vorian stood by the window, silhouette carved against gray winter light. You were analyzing, he said without turning. During the hearings. Not just watching, analyzing. I was trying to understand. And? He turned. What did you understand? That you're not what the stories say. You're not only a monster. Something stirred beneath his expression. That doesn't erase what I did before. No. She stepped closer. But it matters that you're trying. He watched her, that searching intensity she was beginning to recognize. My father told me I was worthless my whole life, she said, the truth spilling out. My stepmother made sure I believed it. And then they sold me. And I thought that was proof. Vorian moved. 1 step, then another, until he stood close enough that she could feel warmth radiating from him. Your father, he said quietly, is a fool. You don't know me. I know you walked into a death sentence without begging. His voice dropped. I know you challenged me in front of my entire court. I know you sat through 3 hours of hearings and saw what no one else bothers to look for. He lifted his hand, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You're not nothing, Soraya. You never were. The touch burned through her. She should step back. Should remember what he was. She didn't move. His gaze dropped to her mouth. Just for a heartbeat. Then something changed in his expression. He stiffened, pulled back sharply. We're being watched, he murmured, barely audible. Soraya's blood chilled. Who? I don't know yet. His jaw tightened. But someone in this court is very interested in how close we're becoming, and that makes you a target. He stepped away, distance returning to his posture. Be careful, Soraya. Trust no one except Yara. Before she could respond, he was gone. And somewhere in the shadows of Ironmoor, someone was already planning how to use her against him. The following weeks passed in a strange rhythm of purpose and paranoia. Soraya kept waiting for the blow to fall, for Vorian's warning to manifest into something real. Instead, she was given work that felt like belonging. It started small. Yara mentioned that the refugee children needed someone to help with their letters. Soraya volunteered before she could second-guess herself. The first day, 6 children showed up. By week's end, 20. You're good with them, Yara observed one afternoon. Someone has to be. Soraya guided a small boy's hand through his name. I know what it feels like to be forgotten. Vorian began appearing, not formally, just present. He came to the refugee hall once, standing in shadows while she taught. She felt him before she saw him, that awareness along her spine, like standing near a banked fire. Another time, she walked the battlements at dusk and found him already there, looking out over the frozen valley. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning. "Could ask you the same." Something almost like a smile crossed his mouth. "Alphas don't sleep. Everyone sleeps." She moved to stand beside him, shoulders nearly touching. Below, the fortress sprawled in shadow and firelight. "You keep calling yourself a monster," she said, "like you're trying to convince someone." "Maybe I'm trying to warn you. Maybe I've already decided I'm not afraid of you." Silence. The wind cut between them, sharp with coming snow. Then quietly, "You should be." He didn't elaborate, but he didn't move away either. They stood there as darkness fell, saying nothing. It was the closest to peace Soraya had felt in years. The woman appeared at dinner 3 nights later. Soraya had grown accustomed to informal meals with Yara. But tonight, Vorian requested her presence at the formal table. She arrived to find someone already seated beside him. Lady Selvira. Silver blonde hair, ice blue eyes, a gown that cost more than Soraya's father earned in a year. And the way she looked at Vorian, possessive, proprietary, made Soraya's stomach twist. "Ah." Selvira's gaze slid over. "The guest." "Soraya," Vorian said flatly. "This is Lady Selvira." "We've heard so much about each other." Selvira's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I advise the Council on Trade Matters, among other things." Dinner was a nightmare of pointed comments. Selvira mentioned Soraya's unfortunate circumstances 3 times, referenced her simple upbringing twice, found constant excuses to touch Vorian's arm, his hand, his shoulder. Vorian said little, but Soraya caught him watching her across the table, something unreadable in his expression. She excused herself early, feeling like she'd swallowed broken glass. The knock came an hour later. She opened the door expecting Yara. Instead, Vorian filled the frame. "She means nothing," he said without preamble. "I don't—" Whatever Selvira implied, it isn't true. He stepped inside. "She wants the position of Luna. I have never given her any indication. You don't have to explain yourself to me." "No." He stopped. "Close." "But I want to." Her pulse jumped. "Why?" He opened his mouth. Then his hand flew to his chest, face contorting, body curving inward. "Vorian!" He stumbled. She caught him. And then he was on his knees, gasping, and something terrible happening behind his eyes. "What's wrong? What do I do?" He couldn't answer. His body shuddered, muscles locking and releasing, breath coming in ragged pulls. "Yara!" Soraya screamed. "Someone help!" He woke to firelight and the smell of her. Soraya. That brightness, close and real. He turned his head and found her asleep in a chair beside his bed, her neck bent uncomfortably, shadows bruising the skin beneath her eyes. She stayed. He tried to sit up. His body screamed. A groan escaped, and Soraya jerked awake instantly. "You're awake!" She was on her feet, pressing her hand against his forehead. "How do you feel?" "I'm fine." "You collapsed." Her voice wavered. "Your heart?" It was like something was crushing it. He looked away. "It happens sometimes. Has for years. Long before you arrived." She went still, processing. "What causes it?" "My father believed weakness was a disease. He trained it out of me when I was young. The methods were thorough." Silence. "He hurt you. He made me into a weapon. Pain was just the tool." Soraya sank back into the chair. "The healers think it's damage to my heart," he continued. "Something that was broken and never healed properly. The episode started when I was 15. They've been getting worse." "Does anyone know?" "Torvald." One sworn healer. He finally looked at her. And now you. The weight of that settled between them, his greatest vulnerability, handed to her willingly. I won't tell anyone, Soraya said quietly, but someone needs to protect you. I don't need. Everyone needs protection. You've spent your whole life being the weapon. Who's been the shield? He had no answer. I didn't have anyone either, Soraya continued. After my mother died, I was alone in a house full of people. She swallowed. But my mother told me something before she died. She said, "You will find your people, Soraya, the ones who see you. When you do, hold on with both hands." His chest ached. Not the old pain. Something new. Something terrifying. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. I've never met anyone like you, he said quietly. You walk into my hall in chains and refuse to bow. You teach refugee children their letters. You look at me, at the scourge of the North, and you see. He stopped, the words lodging in his throat. I see someone who keeps choosing differently, she whispered. Someone who could have been a monster and decided not to be. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's brave. He looked at her, this impossible woman who had walked into his life as payment for a debt and somehow become the only thing that mattered. I love you. The words fell out before he could stop them. I don't know when it started. Maybe the moment you refused to bow. Maybe when I saw you teaching those children. But I know I can't imagine this fortress without you. She held his gaze, something unreadable moving behind her eyes. I'm not worthy of you, he continued. The packs I destroyed, there were children, families. I told myself it was necessary. But order built on bones isn't order. People change. Do they? You took in the Greymore refugees. You abolished trial by combat. That doesn't erase what I did. No. Her hand tightened around his. But you told me monsters can choose to be something else. Were you lying? He went still. You weren't, she whispered. So prove it. Keep choosing. Something shifted in his expression, walls falling, armor cracking. He reached for her face. The door slammed open. My Alpha. Torvald's voice was urgent. The Lady Silvira. She's called an emergency council meeting. She's claiming the girl is a spy. Soraya went white. She has evidence. Letters found in the girl's room, written in her hand, detailing Ironmore's defenses. That's impossible. The council is assembling now. They're demanding a trial. Vorian looked at Soraya. Those letters are forged, she whispered. I know. He gripped her hand. But this isn't about truth. It's about power. And someone just made a move against both of us. The council chamber felt like a tomb. Soraya stood in the center, wrists bound again with iron cuffs. The faces surrounding her were carved from stone. Silvira stood at the front, radiant in silver silk, holding papers like sacred texts. The evidence is clear. Her voice carried through the chamber. These letters were hidden in the girl's fireplace, written in her hand, detailing guard rotations, the Alpha's schedule. She held up a page. Soraya recognized the handwriting with a sickening lurch. It was her hand. Or close enough. The girl is a spy. She wormed her way into the Alpha's trust and has been feeding information to Thornvale. This is a lie. Soraya's voice came out stronger than she felt. I never wrote those letters. You forged them, Soraya continued. You've been trying to get rid of me since I arrived. Silvira's smile flickered. Ridiculous accusations. Then test the ink. If I wrote those weeks ago, the materials will be aged. If they were written yesterday to frame me, the council doesn't have time for delay tactics. The evidence will be tested. Every head turned to Vorian. The alchemists will examine everything, he said. Until then, the accused will be held in the Eastern Tower. The tower? A council member sputtered. That's practically a guest suite. She is my guest until proven otherwise. Silvira's mask slipped. Pure hatred blazed before she controlled it. They took Soraya to the tower. Hours crawled by. Night fell. The fire burned low. Then the door opened. Yara slipped inside. The alchemists found something. She was already unlocking the cuffs. The letters were written within the last 3 days. You've been cleared. Relief flooded through Soraya. But that's not why I'm here. Yara's hands shook. Silvira intercepted the report, and she's been poisoning the Alpha for months, long before you arrived. Small doses. That's why he's been having episodes. It was never his heart. It was her. Soraya's world tilted. Tonight, she's giving him the final dose, strong enough to kill. Where is he? His chambers. She went with wine an hour ago. Soraya ran. She burst through his doors to find exactly what she'd feared. Vorian slumped in a chair, face gray, breathing shallow. A goblet lay overturned, dark liquid pooling, and Silvira stood over him, a small vial in her hand. You should be in the tower. Step away from him. Or what? Silvira laughed. You're a disgraced prisoner. In a few minutes, your precious Alpha will be dead. Soraya's gaze found the vial. Antidote. It had to be. You think I'm weak, Soraya said quietly, stepping forward. Everyone does. But my mother taught me something. The ones they overlook are the ones who survive. Silvira's hand moved toward the fire. Soraya lunged. They crashed to the floor. The vial flew from Silvira's hand. Soraya scrambled for it, but Silvira was faster, hands closing around Soraya's throat. You ruined everything. Soraya couldn't breathe. Spots danced across her vision. Then, a snarl. The weight vanished. Vorian was on his feet, shaking violently, and one hand around Silvira's throat. You poisoned me. Vorian, please. You tried to kill her. His hand tightened. Vorian! Soraya's scream cut through. He turned, eyes wild. Don't become what she wants you to be. You said monsters can choose. Choose. Silence. His chest heaved. Then he dropped Silvira. Guards flooded in. The vial, Soraya said. You need... His legs buckled. She caught him, found the vial, and pressed it to his lips. He drank, and the world held its breath. For 3 days, Vorian lay motionless while Soraya refused to leave his side. Yara brought her food she barely touched. Torvald brought reports. Silvira imprisoned. The council in chaos. The truth spreading through Ironmore like wildfire. Soraya listened to all of it and processed none of it. All she could see was his face. Pale. Still. Barely breathing. Come back, she thought, holding his hand. Come back to me. On the 3rd night, his fingers twitched. Vorian? His eyes opened slowly. Soraya, you're here. Of course I'm here. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Where else would I be? He smiled, small, tired, and real. You saved me. You saved me first. We're even. Recovery was slow. The antidote had stopped the poison, but months of accumulated damage didn't heal overnight. Vorian tired easily, lost his breath climbing stairs, had to delegate more than his pride wanted to allow. But he got stronger, day by day. And Soraya was there for all of it. She read to him when he couldn't sleep, argued with him when he tried to work too soon, sat with him through long winter evenings, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about her mother. Really told him. The full story. The memories she'd guarded like treasures. He told her about his father. The cruelty that had shaped him. The monster he'd been so afraid of becoming. You're not a monster, she said one night, curled beside him on the bed. You never were. I've done monstrous things. And then you chose differently. She lifted her head to look at him. That's not nothing, Vorian. That's everything. One night he found her standing by the window, staring out at the snow. Your council thinks you should send me back to Thornvale, she said quietly. His expression hardened. My council can go to hell. My father has been sending letters. He says the exchange was only temporary. Your father lost any claim to you the moment he handed you over in chains. Vorian moved closer. What do you think? I think I belong wherever I choose to belong. And where is that? She turned to face him. Here. With you. Relief flooded his expression. He cupped her face with both hands. Gentle. Reverent. I love you, he said. I know I said it before, when I was half dying and possibly delirious. But I need you to know. I meant it. I mean it now. I know. She pressed her forehead to his. I love you too. Something in his expression transformed. Wonder, disbelief, joy. He kissed her. Gentle at first, then hunger, need, years of loneliness finally finding their answer. When they broke apart, he whispered against her lips, Stay. Be my Luna. My partner. My mate. Yes. For the first time in her life, Soraya felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The courtyard bloomed with summer. Soraya stood on the balcony of their chambers, watching children chase each other between market stalls. Wolves of 3 different packs mingled freely, the old borders dissolving more every day. This is what peace looks like. Arms wrapped around her from behind. Thinking too loudly, Vorian murmured against her hair. I can hear it from inside. I'm thinking about how different everything is. Different good? Different miraculous. She turned to face him. A year ago, I was sold as payment. Now I'm Luna of Ironmoor, mother of refugees, terror of the council. I am not a terror. You made Councilman Drevik cry. He deserved it. Vorian laughed, that rare, real sound she'd worked so hard to earn. There's something I need to tell you, she said. His expression shifted. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She pressed his hand against her stomach. Everything is very right. Silence. His eyes went wide. The healer confirmed it this morning. He made a sound, half laugh, half sob, and lifted her, spinning her carefully. I love you, he said, face buried in her neck. I love you. I love you. I love you too. He set her down, forehead pressed to hers. My father told me love was weakness, he said quietly, that it would destroy me. And he was wrong. His eyes, bright with tears he wasn't ashamed to shed, met hers. You didn't destroy me, Soraya. You saved me. She kissed him. Below, the courtyard bustled with life. Above, summer clouds drifted across endless blue. Between them, a new heartbeat grew. You will find your people, her mother had promised, the ones who see you. Soraya smiled against Vorian's lips. She had. Thank you for listening. These stories exist because of you. Because you listen, you share, you feel alongside these characters. That means more than I could ever say. I'm so grateful you're here. Until next time.